Hey guys, Kaz here. We're at Kaz vs. Wild Season 7 and I'm going to show you my Bushcraft saw. Alright guys, so here we are and I have the pieces of my saw right here in front of you, and it's really simple. Basically we have the two handles, we have the saw blade, we have a cross member, we have a tension tightener, and we have paracord. And these are the only things that you need for your Bushcraft saw. Now, one thing that I did was, as you can see right away, I want to talk about the saw because that is the most important piece of all of this. Now, this saw here is a medium coarse blade, and you can see that its teeth are not all that rigid, okay? Meaning they're not that deep. On some bow saw blades, you have some very deep and widespread teeth for some major digging into tree branches and limbs and things like that. But for this saw blade, I went with the medium coarseness blade. And the reason why, this is more of an all-purpose blade, but it works great. And I just want to encourage you to consider that when making your own Bushcraft bow saw. Now, the length of the blade is 12 inches. And after I have everything complete and set up, I have 11 inches of cutting surface. So that's actually really good. That's a good, decent amount of cutting surface. 11 inches gives you a lot to work with, and it's a real good cut. Now, on the end, I want to show you what I have here. I have both a nut and bolt, and it goes into the hole on the end of the blade. And just so you know that the nut that I chose is the one with the nylon in it, and that's a self-locking nut, so I know that it's not going to fall off, because the nylon creates a tension on the nut and the bolt, so therefore it's very hard to turn. So I know that for a fact that that nut's not going to come off. That's very, very critical. Now, looking at the handles, what I did was I just chose just an average length. I didn't really measure it. I just decided how long I wanted the bow saw to be, but it came out to being almost like 11.5 inches. Now, you'll see that there's a notch back here, and that's for the paracord, and I'll show you that later in the video. But what I did here is I cut a spline in the middle of the post, and I also notched this out to create a pocket, which I made concave. So the reason why I did that is so that this nut and bolt will sit right in there, and you can see how it sits in there, and I'll show you that in a minute. It just locks itself in there, and it creates a nice firm seat for itself. And therefore this nut and bolt's not going to come out, and I can hold it together by using tension, by using this, and with the paracord. But before I get to that point, I want to talk about the cross member. And the reason why I did it this way is because this really makes this saw very, very rigid. Now, what I did was I carved out a notch in here, and I made a radius inside the cross member on each end. And the reason why I did that is because it just sits right in there on this cross member here. Actually, it goes this way, and it just sits right in there, and it creates a very good seat for the cross member to the handle, and it makes this saw very, very rigid. I can use it as a one-handed saw, and I'm going to demonstrate that in just a minute. But I'm going to show you how easy it is to put this together and explain what I'm doing as I put it together. So the first thing we need to do is we need to take the two handles and separate them. And we're going to take the blade and we're going to seat it in the slot. So we're going to do this just like that. We're going to take the other one, and we're going to seat it just like this. Now, we're not going to worry about the positioning of it too much just yet. We're going to work on that. And then I'm going to take the cross member and I'm going to sit it right in here. And as you can see already how the bow saw is coming together. Okay? Now, the next most important thing is we need to measure our distance from the paracord to the cross member, because that is what's going to create the tension and hold the tension so it doesn't unwind. So I'm going to put the paracord on here. I'm going to wrap this around like this, And I'm not worried that this is falling apart yet. I'm not even concerned about that in the least bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece here and I'm going to spin it, which is going to create tension. It's going to create tension, and it's going to pull the arms together. And as you can see, it's doing that now. And this is where I'm going to start. Once I feel tension to begin on this paracord is when I'm going to make the adjustments. I'm not worried that this is falling apart yet, but right now I can feel that there's minimal tension on here. So I'm going to adjust this here, get this right, and now I'm going to measure and make sure that the piece is going to stop on the cross member, because that's going to be important, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to start or continue putting tension on the paracord, and what that's going to do is that's going to tighten up the saw blade in here. Now I'm going to stop for just a second here, all right, and you can see that the tension is against the cross member, all right. So that's why this is important. You want to have the distance between your paracord and your cross member shorter than the distance of your locking stick, okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to adjust my blade here. I'm going to adjust the pins, make sure everything is okay. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. All right, there we go. That's good. And you can easily see I'm just adding downward pressure so I can adjust this a little bit, seat that right in there, have it fit just in there perfectly. Okay, so now from this point here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some more tension. So I'm going to come back to the paracord and I'm going to start winding this up. Okay, now I turned it twice. I'm going to check the blade again, make sure that it's sitting in its proper position, and it is. As you can see, the nuts and bolts are falling right in place where they should be, and if they're not, I can still adjust it here a little bit and get it so that they are falling in place. So we've got that perfect just like that. So now I'm going to add some more tension. Oops, wrong way. Okay, I'm going to turn it one more time. Now there's a lot of tension on here, but I'm not worried about it. Okay, so now I'm going to check my nuts and bolts again. They look good. Everything looks good so far. The nuts and bolts are in line. They're locking in place. Everything looks good. Okay, so I'm going to turn this a couple more times. And now what this doing is that it's adding pressure onto the blade so it stays locked in place. So we're going to take a look at that. That looks really good. Now the only thing that I don't like is that this cross member now moved a little bit. So I'm going to tap on it just a little bit here and try and get this side to go down. And there we go, it did go down. So now this is perfectly straight across. This is locked in place. And this looks real good. Now when I go to use it, if there's any slop or it doesn't feel comfortable, all I have to do is turn this one more time and add more pressure onto the saw. So let's go ahead and demonstrate how this saw cuts and how well it works. Alright guys, we're back and I've got a great bushcraft tip for you. When you're in the forest and you want to cut some wood, you can use nature to your advantage, and here is one great way of doing that. This tree has two trunks to it and it's forming the shape of a V. So what you can do is you can take the wood that you want to cut, and you can see it's already locked in there. So you can just lock it in here and use this as a vise. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bushcraft saw and I'm going to show you how well it works. Here's the saw that we assembled, and this is a pretty nice log here. It's about 3 inches in diameter. And I'm going to show you how well this cuts. Now you can see I used my Bushcraft saw like a traditional saw, one-handed. The blade didn't slip, the frame didn't come apart, and that's how you know you have a good Bushcraft saw. So I'm really happy that this turned out as well as it did, and I hope you use the tip to your advantage. Using a tree that's shaped in the letter of a V, you can lock your wood right in there, and all you got to do is lift it up, feed it through, and you can make another cut just like that. I'm going to continue sawing, and I hope you guys appreciate this video and learn something from it, because this is something that you can make out in the wild, and all you need is a saw and some paracord. Everything else is provided by nature. Hope you have a great day. Take care, guys. I'm going to finish cutting some wood.